everyone, welcome back to another scrapbook process video, and thank you for joining me again today. So I am doing another layout using the Doodlebug School Days collection, and I was ready to put this collection away. I had everything bagged up and was ready to put it on my shelf and start with something new, but I kind of thought, I should at least try to get one or two more layouts done. I already had the pictures picked out, and I think I was just starting to get a little bored with this collection. After I do a few layouts, I get a little bored with the collection and want to move on. So I kind of forced myself to do this layout, but I'm really happy that I did because I love how it turned out. So I had these two photos of my son, and I will talk about the photos in just a moment. But what I did was I looked up my sketches that I wanted to follow, and because I had a lot of scraps, and I also have the 6x6 paper pad, which you can see there, which I will start cutting from in just a moment. But I decided to look at the sketches that I got from taking Scrapbook Generation's 6x6 paper pad 2 class. I'm not sure the exact name of it, but it's all about the entire class. I've mentioned it before. I love it. It's so worth the money. It just uses nothing but 6x6 paper pads, which can easily be turned into using scraps. So if you don't have the 6x6 paper pad, but you do have scraps, it works just as well. So the sketch called for a bunch of 2x2 pieces of pattern paper, and then I'm also going to cut this white cardstock down to 2x2, and I will show you what I'm going to do with that in a few minutes. So I cut a bunch of the pattern papers. Most of these I do believe are from the 6x6 size. A lot of them were ones that I have either cut out before. I did pull out a few new sheets to get the colors that I wanted. I wanted to use that yellow and green because I have some of the rainbow ones you can see there with the stars and the dots. So I didn't want all of my papers to be real busy rainbow colors. I have a couple of these ones with the alphabet written on them like you would see in a school, so I use those just to kind of, again, have a little bit of a more neutral color to help your eye rest a little bit, I guess you could say, on the layout. And now I'm going to start adding them to the layout. So before I do that, I have to show you, if you guys remember in one of my last videos, the doorbell rang and I told you that you would see what it was that had arrived in one of my later videos. Well, it was my new cutting mat. So I decided that I needed a new cutting mat. If you remember in my other videos, when I did a double page layout, the 2 pages just barely fit into the mat. Maybe you guys never paid attention, but it would kind of drive me nuts a little bit. So this one's taking a little bit of time getting used to as far as making sure it's in the camera. It's not as easy to tell. But this one is nice. This is like 24 by 36. And so it says it is a self-healing cutting mat, but what I want to kind of help it last a little while longer. So I am using this smaller mat to when I use my Perfect Layers rulers. I am going to cut on the big white mat, but I'm just going to try to help it last as long as I can. So if using that smaller mat works, then, it's a little bit better and it's just as easy. So I also like the white color of the mat for the videos too. I feel like it's a little brighter and looks really good. So just thought I would point that out. So what I've done is I've taken these two photos, and I believe the sketch that I'm following had 2 vertical photos that were like 3x4 maybe in size. So this is kind of where I went off on my own. Plus it was a little bit harder to tell where exactly they had all their squares. But I got the main idea to just put squares all around. And when I was cutting them, I made sure to cut an odd number of each of these colors of pattern paper. And that way I could have, that odd number 3. Most of them were 3, I want to say. And I could put all 3 of those around the layout. So I'm just playing around with each one of them here. And if you notice, I drew with a pencil very lightly. I outlined where the photo was going to go because I didn't see much point in, putting a bunch of squares behind where the photo was going to go. And I'm just placing them around. So my original thought was I was going to have a cluster of the squares on the left-hand side, a cluster of the squares on the top right-hand side, and a cluster on the bottom right-hand side. You can kind of see that it doesn't exactly end up that way, so I'm going to play around. I ended up cutting another one of these rainbows because I only had 2. and that just kind of helps fill in that area. And I'm going to put the photo down, and so far I like it. I'm going to glue them all down. One thing I am going to do is use my T-square ruler, and don't worry, I'm not going to make you watch me as I glue every one of them down. But I wanted them to be straight. And I think this layout would be a lot of fun, and I might actually try it one of these days. If you have them all crooked and kind of wonky, that might be a lot of fun too. But this one, I wanted to follow the sketch as far as that goes, and having them all be straight. So one thing I want you to notice what I did, which I believe they also did on the sketch, but I made sure to put some of the squares behind other squares or on top of other squares, and then also have some of the squares off on their own so that they're not touching any of the squares. And not only that, but I made sure that some of them went off of the layout and some of them also went behind the photo. That just really helps give a continuous kind of flow, I guess you could say. It makes it look like will continue on if there was a second page, which actually, so the sketch that I'm following is a bonus sketch from that class. So one of the cool things about the class was you got the main sketches, some single, some double pages, but then there was a bunch of bonus sketches, and there wasn't for every one of the layouts, but there was for quite a few of them. So if it was a double page sketch, they gave you a single page layout or kind of sketch. It didn't have the measurements or whatever, but this was one of those bonus sketches. So now, since I felt like the left-hand side here had a huge piece of that white space, and it was just a little bit too much compared to the rest of the page, so I went ahead and glued that extra square on there, and I really like how this goes, but my favorite part of the layout kind of is what's going to come next. So I had mentioned I cut this little 2x2 piece of white cardstock, and again, this was from the sketch. This was not my idea, but I love it. What this is for is to make some faux stitching around your squares. So I'm just taking my black pen and I'm outlining, and I'm going to show you kind of up close, although it does go pretty quick here. You outline around the white cardstock and it looks like another square. It looks like faux stitched square. And one thing that I did as well with that was I made sure that that faux stitching not only went on top of some of the squares, but it also went behind some of the squares or off of the page as well. And there's even a couple spots where I layered those stitched squares as well. I think on the bottom right hand side you can see where I did that as well. So if you try out this layout, have fun with it. It would be great. It's an easy layout. Again, you can use up scraps super easy. You could do any configuration of photos if you wanted. You could do photos all across the page. You can do them, up and down full ways. There's a whole many different ways that you could do it. So have fun playing with it. Now I just took off, you could probably see a bunch of some of the ephemera pieces that I thought that I really liked the sayings to go with these photos. So these are photos of my son in kindergarten, and I believe they were kind of earlier on in the year, and homework starting up again. You have your relaxing summer, and then it's time for homework and all these things to start up again. But with my son, he's now in 10th grade, so these are very old photos, but when he was in preschool, I went to help him a couple times with homework, but I think like the second or third time, these aren't those photos, but I do have these photos to tell this story at a later time. He said, I went to help him with his homework, and he's like, no, Mom, I got this. It was kind of like, leave me alone, Mom. And I never really, ever since that day, ever really had to help him with his homework, and it was different, so it was nice. I won't lie, having a baby and other things, it made it a lot easier. So it was kind of nice that he could do his own homework. But these are ones just of him in kindergarten, again, doing his homework on his own. So I liked the title, Good Job. I thought it was very generic, and you could use it for anything. So really, it kind of went with the photos. I also took that journaling card, and it is just from the 3x4 cut aparts. I love the fact that they made the notebook looking journaling cards because it's perfect. I put it there basically for my journaling. I did also like the fact that it would help the title stand out from all the busy pattern paper squares behind it. And I did end up covering up a couple of the squares, but I'm not worried about that. So it is what it is as far as that goes. now I'm just adding a few things around, and I did pop my title up with some foam tape, and I'm making sure to add something in every cluster that's popped up on foam tape. And then I went to put this speech bubble down. Now, if there's anything that I could ever encourage you to do more than anything else, cut your ephemera pieces to make them work for you. So before I started watching YouTube videos from other YouTubers, I would have never thought to cut my ephemera pieces apart. Use them how they are. It's just kind of, you get in this mindset that that's how they are, that's how you should use them. But ever since I kind of learned that through watching YouTube, I'm not afraid to cut apart my ephemera pieces. So here's a good example. I loved the words that was here. I think the speech bubble says imagine, believe, achieve, or something like that. And I really liked those words for these pictures. I thought that they just went really well, but it was in the speech bubble form, and I couldn't get that speech bubble to look good on the layout. I just felt like it was too puffy and too yellow. But when I cut them apart, they looked so good, and they just look like phrase stickers. And I mean, phrase stickers, not phrase stickers, but they look really good. And I'm not really losing anything because I'm still using that ephemera piece. If I really wanted to save the scraps, then I could, but I'm not going there. But and so it really works. So don't be afraid to cut your ephemera pieces to work for you. You can tuck a lot of things in, and I will talk more about this with my cluster video that is going to be coming up. It's going to be a series, otherwise it'll be a really long video, just so you guys know. But same thing here. So I had this speech bubble that says doing homework, and I thought about using it, thought about not using it. When it was in the speech bubble form, it almost took over the title, which either one of those, the good job or the doing homework, would have worked just fine for the title. Excuse me. But I didn't want it to be so prominent there. So I just cut it down into a square like the other things, and it worked out just fine. And I really like how it's on there. And it's, again, another piece of ephemera that got used up. So another thing that I'm going to point out here, these arrows. So one of the things that Doodlebug almost always has on their sticker sheets are these arrows, and I love them. They're always so pretty. They're always rainbowy or match the colors of the collection so well, but I always struggle to use those. So I put them on there, and right now I'm not completely crazy about them. But I love the way the layout turns out. I'm going to fill in the space underneath that red arrow to kind of help, make it look like they're not floating. But so they're going to work on there, and they're going to stay, and I really like them. But I want you to notice one thing. Not only is there an even number of arrows, so there's 6 arrows, but there's an even number of spots that they are on the layout. So they're only in 2 different spots. But that works because there's other things on the layout that will make your eye go around the page, if that makes any sense. So there's other elements on the page that are in odd numbers. So there's 3 different cluster areas. There's going to be 3 different enamel dots in each cluster area. So that makes like a total of 9 enamel dots. Even if there was only 2, whatever, it would still work because they're in 3 different locations. So things like that. I'm going to talk more about that with my cluster video. I'm going to start recording that as soon as my voice is just a little bit better. I don't know if you can tell, I'm still fighting a little something, but again, I'm going to apologize for my cat in the background. He just decided to start going crazy. Again, when I do my videos, is his favorite time for some reason. So the last thing that I'm going to do is I was trying to decide if I wanted to mount the layout and give it a frame. And I pulled out my blue cardstock, or some of my blue cardstock, and I couldn't find anything that really matched. So when I was at the Doodlebug event, I bought the Doodlebug Petite Prints pack, and I have to tell you, that was a great purchase because I've already used it multiple times. That was kind of before I decided to start using up my cardstock, but I don't really look at these as cardstock because these will work for so many different things, but I decided to use this blue one, not only because it's the exact same color blue, because it's by Doodlebug, but because it has the little subtle lines in it. I really like that. It kind of just, you probably can't tell in the video because I do want just a super tiny frame, as you could probably see there. And I am going to majorly gut this piece of paper because this is definitely a pattern that I will use again. So I'm going to really gut my layout there and put that back with my other Doodlebug. And I'm going to use my scrappy tape to help me glue it down like I like to do. And I'm really going to be careful. I have to be careful with this one because it has such a tiny border that it is going to be super easy to not get it straight. But I think I do pretty good. So I think that's about all that's left with this layout. I do not have any still shot photos. I'm going to apologize for that. You know, I've been so busy at the school, but it's just now finally starting to slow down a little bit so that I can get things a little more back on track and get back to making the videos and finally do those videos that I have been telling you guys I would be making for a long time now. So that is going to be the layout. I still to this day have not done the journaling, but that's okay. I will get to it. It's sitting on my desk ready to be done. And I'm going to add the date stamp, and that's about it. So you guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.